The land of Israel was living through a dark and painful season. For 40 long years, the Philistines ruled over the Israelites with cruelty and fear. Their soldiers patrolled the roads, their laws crushed freedom, and their gods were praised while the God of Israel seemed distant. Many Israelites had grown silent and weary, wondering if the Lord had forgotten them. In the small town of Zorah, hope felt thin, like a dying flame struggling to stay alive in the wind. In Zorah lived a man named Manoah from the tribe of Dan. He was a hard-working man, faithful to God, but his heart carried a quiet sorrow. His wife, whom he loved deeply, was unable to have children. Year after year, they prayed. Year after year, the house remained silent. Sometimes Manoah would sigh and say gently, "The Lord knows our pain." His wife would nod, forcing a smile, even as her heart ached with unanswered prayers. One ordinary day, while Manoah was away, something extraordinary happened. An angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife. His presence was bright and overwhelming, yet peaceful. She trembled as he spoke. "You are barren and childless, but you will become pregnant and give birth to a son." Her breath caught in her throat. The angel continued, "You must drink no wine or fermented drink and eat nothing unclean, for the child will be a Nazirite, dedicated to God from the womb." The angel's voice grew firm and purposeful. "No razor must ever touch his head," he said. "He will begin the work of delivering Israel from the hands of the Philistines." When the angel disappeared, the woman stood frozen, her heart racing. Then she ran home, her feet barely touching the ground. "Manoah," she cried, "a man of God appeared to me. He looked like an angel, terrifying and glorious, and he told me we will have a son." Manoah listened in awe and fear. That night, he knelt and prayed earnestly. "Lord," he said, his voice trembling, "please send a man of God again. Teach us how to raise this child who is to be born." God heard Manoah's prayer. Not long after, the angel returned, confirming every instruction. Manoah bowed low, realizing that this promised child was not only a gift, but a divine calling that would change Israel's future. In time, Manoah's wife gave birth to a son, just as the angel had promised. They named him Samson, meaning like the sun, for his life would shine brightly over Israel. As the child grew, the Lord blessed him in unusual ways. Even as a boy, there was something different about him, an energy, a strength, a presence that others could feel. Manoah often watched him in silence and whispered, "The hand of the Lord is surely upon this child." As Samson grew into a young man, the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him powerfully. Sometimes he felt restless, as if a fire burned inside his bones. He would wander the countryside near Mahanadan, between Zorah and Eshtaol, sensing that his life was meant for something greater. Though he did not yet understand his purpose, God was already shaping him, preparing him for battles he could not yet see. One day, Samson traveled down to the town of Timnah. There, among the Philistines, he saw a young woman who caught his eye. When he returned home, he spoke boldly to his parents. "I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah," he said. "Now get her for me as my wife." Manoah and his wife were stunned. "Isn't there a woman among our people?" they asked. "Must you marry one of our enemies?" But Samson would not listen. "Get her for me," he insisted. "She is the right one for me." His parents did not understand that the Lord was working through this choice, seeking an opportunity to confront the Philistines. Though troubled, they agreed to go with him. What looked like rebellion was part of a divine plan, unfolding in ways no one yet understood. As Samson traveled toward Timnah, walking through a narrow forest path, danger suddenly appeared. A young lion came roaring toward him, fierce and wild, the air filled with fear and thunder. In that moment, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson. With supernatural strength, he grabbed the lion and tore it apart with his bare hands, as easily as one might tear a young goat. Yet he told no one what he had done. Later, when Samson returned to Timnah for the wedding, he turned aside to look at the place where the lion had fallen. To his surprise, bees had formed a hive inside the carcass, and honey filled it. He scooped some out with his hands and ate as he walked along. When he joined his parents, he shared the honey with them, but he did not tell them where it came from. Some secrets he kept buried deep inside. At the wedding feast, Samson was surrounded by 30 Philistine companions. With a confident smile, he spoke. "Let me tell you a riddle," he said. "If you solve it within 7 days, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. But if you cannot solve it, you must give me the same." They laughed and replied, "Tell us your riddle. Let's hear it." Samson said, "Out of the eater, something to eat, out of the strong, something sweet." The men frowned and whispered among themselves. Day after day passed, and they could not solve it. By the 4th day, fear replaced pride. They went to Samson's wife and threatened her. "Coax your husband into explaining the riddle," they said, "or we will burn you and your father's household." Terrified, Samson's wife went to him in tears. "You hate me," she sobbed. "You don't really love me." Samson replied calmly, "I haven't even explained the riddle to my father or mother. Why should I tell you?" But she cried day after day, pressing him without rest. Her tears wore him down until his strength failed, not in his body, but in his heart, that on the 7th day, Samson finally gave in. He told her the meaning of the riddle, and she quickly told her people. Before sunset, the Philistine men approached Samson and said, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson's eyes burned with anger. "If you had not plowed with my heifer," he said, "you would not have solved my riddle." The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson once again. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 Philistine men, and took their clothing. He gave the garments to those who had solved the riddle. Burning with rage, he returned to his father's house. Meanwhile, his wife was given to another man, one of the companions who had attended the feast. Some time later, during the wheat harvest, Samson returned with a young goat to visit his wife. "I'm going to my wife's room," he said, but her father blocked the door. "I thought you hated her," the man said, "so I gave her to your companion. Isn't her younger sister more attractive? Take her instead." Samson's anger exploded. "This time," Samson declared, "I have a right to get even with the Philistines." He went out and caught 300 foxes, tying them tail to tail in pairs. He fastened torches to each pair and set them loose in the Philistine fields. Fire raced through the grain vineyards and olive groves. Smoke filled the sky, and cries of loss echoed across the land. When the Philistines asked who was responsible, they were told, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite." In revenge, they burned Samson's wife and her father to death. When Samson heard this, his voice was cold and firm. "Since you acted like this," he said, "I swear I won't stop until I get my revenge." He attacked them fiercely and slaughtered many. Afterward, Samson withdrew and stayed in a cave in the rock of Etam. Soon, the Philistines marched into Judah and camped near Lehi. The people of Judah confronted them. "Why have you come to fight us?" they asked. The Philistines answered, "We have come to take Samson prisoner, to do to him what he did to us." Israel stood caught between fear and destiny. 3,000 men from the tribe of Judah went down to the cave in the rock of Etam. They called out to Samson, "Don't you realize that the Philistines rule over us? What have you done to us?" Samson answered calmly, "I merely did to them what they did to me." The men sighed in fear. "We have come to tie you up and hand you over to them," they said. Samson looked at them steadily. "Swear to me that you won't kill me yourselves," he said. "Agreed," they replied. "We will only tie you up and hand you over." So they bound him with 2 new ropes and led him up from the rock. Samson offered no resistance, trusting that God was not finished with him. As Samson approached Lehi, the Philistines came toward him, shouting in victory. Suddenly, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. The ropes on his arms became like burned flax and fell from his hands. Free once more, Samson looked around and saw a fresh jawbone of a donkey lying on the ground. He picked it up and charged forward. With the jawbone in his hand, Samson struck down 1,000 Philistine men. The battlefield fell silent as bodies lay scattered around him. Standing tall, covered in blood but victorious, Samson lifted his voice and said, "With a donkey's jawbone, I have made donkeys of them. With a donkey's jawbone, I have killed 1,000 men." When he finished speaking, he threw the jawbone aside. After the battle, Samson became extremely thirsty. He cried out to the Lord, "You have given your servant this great victory. Must I now die of thirst and fall into hands of the uncircumcised?" God heard him. The Lord opened a hollow place in Lehi, and water flowed out. When Samson drank, his strength returned and his spirit revived. Some time later, Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a beautiful woman, and spent the night with her. The people of Gaza learned he was there, and surrounded the place, lying in wait at the city gate. "At dawn we'll kill him," they whispered. But Samson rose at midnight, grasped the city gates, tore them from their posts, and carried them to the top of a hill facing Hebron. After this, Samson fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek. Her name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines came to her and said, "See if you can lure him into revealing the secret of his great strength. Each of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." Delilah agreed, her eyes fixed on the reward. Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength." Samson replied, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I'll become as weak as any other man." She did as he said, hiding men in the room. When she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he snapped the bowstrings easily. "You have made a fool of me," Delilah said. "Tell me how you can be tied." Samson answered again, "If you bind me with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become weak." Once more she tried, and once more he broke free. Still, Delilah pressed him day after day, her words wearing him down. "How can you say you love me," she cried, "when you won't confide in me?" At last, exhausted and worn down, Samson told her everything. "No razor has ever touched my head," he said. "I am a Nazirite, dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, my strength will leave me." When Delilah knew he had told her the truth, she sent for Philistine rulers. After putting Samson to sleep on her lap, she called for a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. As the last braid fell, his strength left him. When she cried out, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you," he awoke, but the Lord had left him. The Philistines seized Samson, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze shackles and forced him to grind grain in prison. Day after day, he turned the millstone in darkness and silence. Yet slowly, unnoticed by his enemies, the hair on his head began to grow again. The Philistine rulers gathered to celebrate, offering sacrifices to their God. "Our God has delivered Samson into our hands," they shouted. In high spirits, they called for Samson to entertain them. Blind and weakened, he was led into the temple, surrounded by mocking laughter and praise to false gods. Samson asked the servant guiding him, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so I may lean against them." The temple was packed with rulers, men, women, and thousands watching from the roof. No one noticed Samson's lips moving in silent prayer. "Lord God," Samson whispered, "remember me. Please strengthen me just once more. Let me get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." His hands reached out and touched the 2 central pillars. His body tensed, his heart burning with desperate faith. "Let me die with the Philistines," Samson cried. With all his remaining strength, he pushed. The pillars cracked. The ground shook. The temple collapsed, crushing the rulers and everyone inside. In his death, Samson killed more enemies than he had during his life. Later, Samson's brothers and his father's household went down to retrieve his body. They carried him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Manoah. Israel mourned the man who had been both their deliverer and their warning. Samson had led Israel for 20 years. His life was filled with victories and failures, strength and weakness, obedience and rebellion. Yet through it all, God's purpose was fulfilled. Even Samson's brokenness could not stop the divine plan. Samson's story teaches that great gifts come with great responsibility. Strength without discipline leads to destruction. Desire without wisdom brings ruin. Yet repentance, even at the end, can restore purpose and honor. In the end, Samson's life stands as a powerful reminder. God can use flawed people to accomplish his will. Faith matters. Obedience matters. And no failure is too great for God to redeem. Through Samson, Israel learned that true strength does not come from muscles, but from surrender to God. If you like stories like this, Subscribe to the Golden Bible Story page on YouTube. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. God bless you.